welcome to another Explore Everyday Night Sky Adventure. It's Memorial Day weekend, and I'm gonna have 2 evenings out under the stars here. We've had clear skies, shooting the Milky Way. I'll talk about that in a second. I hope you can join me and see what we can capture here near Pine City, Minnesota. All right, Memorial Day weekend, a chance to sneak out of the city. We're about an hour north near Pine City, and I have a couple nights to get out and explore the aurora. Last night, Saturday, was the first night I made it out, only for about 45 minutes to an hour. I had a plan to go over to the St. Croix River, which is about 10 minutes from here, at one of the main landings to shoot the Milky Way. Unfortunately, there's a landing across the river in Wisconsin, and somebody was over there fishing that had a gigantic light on, so I immediately had to abort that spot. There's quite a few farm fields and farm roads outside the cabin here. That is where I spent my time. I found a pano that hopefully stitches together, and I found a kind of an interesting shot with a dead end sign, which I've done a quick edit on my phone and I really like. So those are my first 2 photos of the trip here, so I'll show those shortly. Tonight, I'm just gonna explore around the cabin. So we do not have great views of the night sky directly from the cabin, but I can walk to a couple areas that do have some views of the southeast. And my first shot that I have framed up here is actually at their neighbor's property that has a pretty wide open view to the southeast, and I can see that Milky Way rising right now. So I'm gonna run an overnight time lapse here. I got my little basket here to hold my battery. I've got a thermal lens warmer on there to keep from any dew forming. And my first shot is on my Sigma 14 millimeter. I'm gonna shoot this at f2, 20-second exposures at ISO 3200. I'm just gonna let this run all night long and see what we get. The Milky Way should just rise right up through the frame here. And then I'm gonna grab my other cameras and just go on a little walkabout right here at the cabin property and see what other kind of Milky Way images I can get. Hope you join along. Let's get this time lapse going now. Going a little stealth mode here. This is the first shot that I framed up. I'm out in a field kind of between 2 properties here. Just a 2-minute walk from the cabin. Milky Way is coming, core is coming right up the middle of the frame here. And on my still picture is actually airglow, which I've not shot airglow in quite a while. So green airglow with the Milky Way, with some of the orange from the light pollution from the Twin Cities. So it's kind of some dynamic colors in the shot, so I'm looking forward to seeing how that looks on the computer. I'm going to continue to walk around and see what other shots I can find now. Quick update. So I'm out in the field. Essentially, I'm shooting the time lapse over just from maybe 100 yards behind the camera here. So I've taken a few compositions out over this open field. There's a few pine trees here, one right here that you can maybe see that I'm using in my composition. kind of running out of things to do. The Milky Way core is still pretty low, and for me to start shooting at the cabin, it's gonna have to get pretty high in the sky. So I'm not sure if we're gonna see that tonight. I'm a little leery to walk any further away. There's a lot of dogs barking. I'm out in the country. There could be some loose dogs. I'm in their space. I don't need to be bumping into a dog, protecting its own property out here. So I'm gonna head back towards the cabin and see if we can start getting any kind of the core or maybe other portions of the Milky Way more to the east and north to see if we can get any compositions from the driveway of the cabin. On we go. Good morning from the scene of our time lapse last night. Last we spoke, it was about 1 a.m. and I just kind of ran out of compositions, and I had to kind of keep my lights off out that way where I was shooting because this is where my time lapse is set up, and my other shots were about 100 yards that way. So walking around in the dark the whole time was a little challenging, and I just ran out of things to shoot, and I got tired. So wrapping up, hopefully this time lapse of the Milky Way core rising out in that southeastern sky will turn out. I'll put up the rest of the shots that I took, like I said, about 100 yards off to my south here. So the view over my shoulder is my composition for the time lapse I set up last night. And I think it's always interesting to see what compositions look like in the daytime versus under that night sky when you're out shooting. And one thing I've realized is you can have a much more boring composition that looks like during the day. This would be a nothing picture during the day unless there was like a sunset or sunrise or something. But that night sky, the Milky Way, aurora, star trails, those all add a unique perspective to an image that we don't see every day. So we don't just have to have dramatic mountainscapes, seascapes, things that not everyone has access to, which I guess is part of Explore Every Day. This is a driveway with just some trees and a sky, and I think the time lapse will look pretty nice.
Just put together a quick impromptu night sky video here. Had a hard time getting out this year so far, but took advantage while I was up north here. So thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next Explore Everyday video.